From discovering a mummified body in an underground bunker to a patient spontaneously bursting into flames while recovering from surgery, these are the most bizarre cases on NCIS. This episode from Season 2 opens up at a site on a naval base, where we see numerous workers and diggers digging away. There's heavy machinery, a bulldozer makes a mini sinkhole, and work is temporarily halted. The foreman comes forward and shines a flashlight into the hole, which reveals an underground bunker with a mummified body. Classic opening scene. So the NCIS team is now investigating the mummified remains of what appears to be a woman, wearing a single white wedding dress, abandoned in a marine home. The room itself resembles something straight out of a 1950s catalog. The corpse is found on the bed, complete with a vanity table, a toilet, and chained to the wall. Yikes. Kate also discovers a book in the room titled The Good Wife's Guide, 10 Steps to Pleasing Your Husband. Double yikes. Upon investigation, the team uncovers evidence that suggests that a serial killer is responsible here. And he might even have another victim in Florida, a woman who mysteriously disappeared after she went to work. The team then heads to Jacksonville Naval Base, where they work with the NCIS agent stationed there. Things get even more complicated when the killer commits suicide, making the team's timeline even shorter, and well, things just get weirder. The whole episode was just creepy and bizarre, with even a dash of Stockholm Syndrome thrown in. But this isn't the first time mummified remains have been mentioned on the show. Season 4's episode saw workers find a smoked and preserved body inside a chimney while they were replacing a furnace at a high school at the Marine Corps base in Virginia. Gibbs and the team investigate with the FBI since the victim was apparently a wanted serial killer. Ducky has trouble with the time of death of the victim, and Abby has a bit of trouble with the fingerprints. The episode takes a turn for the worse when they bring in cannibalism. The autopsy shows a severed left foot toe in the victim's stomach. Gross. I can deal with the most harrowing of true crime documentaries, mass murders, and not be overly troubled by it. But cannibalism is just downright strange and creepy as heck. Even DiNozzo was taken aback by the whole cannibalism part, since he said he'd seen a lot of stuff in his time, but this shocked him to the core. What made the whole case even more bizarre was that the chimney man wasn't the serial killer, it was his wife. And the look she gives when everyone catches on to her, as creepy music plays in the background, is one of the strangest moments of the episode. Hats off to the actors, but definitely one of those bizarre cases that are going to stay with you. Sometimes there are certain NCIS episodes that tend to really push the boundaries of the narratives they're going with, and will definitely make you scratch your head and go, huh? Dog Tags from Season 5 is definitely one such episode. When the team raids a home in an attempt to arrest a Navy petty officer at Pax River, a guard dog attacks McGee, biting him on the neck. As a result, McGee shoots the German Shepherd in self-defense. Thankfully, the dog doesn't die, mostly thanks to the quick actions of Palmer and Ducky. Also, apparently there just wasn't any time to take the dog to an emergency vet, so a couple of medical examiners will have to do. Well, the dog lives, but that's not enough to placate Abby, who's furious that McGee shot a dog, even though he could have died. Yep, Abby sees the dog, and all thoughts related to McGee's well-being just fly right out the window. I could already tell this was going to be a long episode. There was also a dead officer at the home they raided. But despite that, this episode is all about Abby's strange obsession with the dog. Abby seems to believe that the dog is a victim, and so what does she end up doing? She puts her career at risk just to prove that the dog is innocent. Okay, we get it. He's a defenseless animal, but does it have to come at the cost of your career? Instead of helping the team continue the investigation and figure out the motive behind the case of the dead officer, she's completely focused on proving the dog's innocence. The case was especially bizarre because it's very unlike Abby, who's actually smart as a whip. It felt uncharacteristic of her to focus on something like this, and many fans thought the show did her wrong, painting out her character to act like some petulant little child. The dog obsession was definitely one of the more bizarre cases on the show, but getting an anonymous love letter that could potentially be life-threatening certainly had me thinking about the show's confidence with some of the episodes. Episode 22 of Season 2 marks a rather strange case for sure. A deadly letter, sealed with a kiss, gets delivered to the NCIS headquarters, addressed to an NCIS special agent, now. Tony assumes it's for him and quickly opens it up, only to disperse what looks like some sort of white powder over himself and possibly everyone else who's in the bullpen. Things quickly get chaotic, and procedures to tackle bioterrorism are quickly set in motion. Things get real when they discover that thanks to the white powder, Tony has caught some form of the plague. Didn't the plague occur like 100 years ago? Well, Tony gets sicker and travels with Kate to Bethesda, who takes extra good care of him while his condition worsens. Ultimately, Gibbs, Ducky, Abby, and McGee all work together with Agent Cassie Yates and learn that the powder is a genetically altered substance. They rush to find a cure and the sender of the deadly letter to help save Tony and crack the case. I mean, the audience knows Tony won't die, but the episode's still made for really strange TV. A possible genetically altered plague attack? Really? The writers could have done better with this one. And if bioterrorism isn't weird enough for you, there's an episode from Season 6 that seems to be inspired by Fight Club. Yep. The NCIS team investigates the death of a petty officer who, following a car collision, wanders into the woods and collapses to his death. But upon digging further into the case, the man showed signs of wounds that one would normally get in a fight prior to the crash. There are even bullet holes in the victim's car, which Gibbs and the crew discover. So far so good, seems like a potentially interesting case. But it's when they link the victim to a secret fight club, things get strangely weird. The team is weirdly led into a brutal, no-holds, barred, violent world of illegal underground street fighting, which makes little to no sense in the show. As a case, it feels bizarrely unnecessary. Each NCIS member offers a little bit of intel from time to time until McGee finally uncovers this grand conspiracy to help close the case. The case itself felt so far from reality. Like, do these things ever really happen in anyone's life? Have you guys heard of a real fight club operating illegally in some underground scene? I sure haven't. That's obviously not to say that just because no one's heard of it doesn't mean it can't happen. But this whole plot just felt a little bit too out there in terms of the weirdness. Now, weird letters and illegal fight clubs aside, imagine there's a patient sleeping in a hospital bed. Sounds pretty normal, right? The nurse checks in and makes a little casual conversation with a colleague, but then the patient literally catches fire. Yep, you heard that right. In this episode from Season 2, we see a patient spontaneously combust. I mean, that's exactly what it looks like, and the NCIS team is called in to investigate. The victim in this case, Commander Michael Dornan, had just had open-heart surgery and was recovering from the procedure till he had flames engulf his entire body. Weird, right? While the possibility of a case of spontaneous human combustion may be exciting, for an investigative team, the NCIS folks soon discover that the reality was far from anything out of the ordinary. The commander in question had a long list of enemies. So while the team starts to suspect those around him, above his ship, on the USS Kennedy, Ducky takes a different route and chooses to focus on the doctor. Lo and behold, the doctor in question, Surgeon Commander Janice Byers, didn't want another bungled surgery on her record. So she essentially channeled her inner MacGyver and set the victim's body on fire with items in Dornan's pockets. That's dark. I wonder what she'll be charged with. Violating a corpse or arson? Honestly, before this episode, I don't think I've ever seen a human body just burst into flames. It was downright disturbing, and probably something the show could have done without, considering it's got a massive TV audience. So, from a patient spontaneously bursting into flames while recovering from surgery, to discovering a mummified body in an underground bunker, these were the most bizarre cases on NCIS.